Hey pen people, I'm really excited about today's video, and I think a lot of you are too, because when I did a poll recently about what video you wanted me to make next, this one was the obvious winner. So today we're going to talk about expensive fountain pens versus cheap fountain pens. We're going to kind of put these pens against each other and see how they hold up. We're going to look at build quality and durability and overall writing experience and all these kinds of things to kind of give you an idea of what you can expect across the range of fountain pens to help you decide if it's really worth it to invest a ton of money in a fountain pen or if you want to stick with something basic. Both are fine, but we'll go into some of those details and hopefully give you some information that can be helpful there. So the cheapest pen we'll be looking at today is my Jinhao Shark. I got it for about $2 on sale. I think it's generally about $4. And I think you can actually still find it for $2. I just looked on Goulet Pen's website and a couple of the colors of the Shark are available for $1.97 as of the making of this video. The most expensive pen we'll be looking at, it's made an appearance in a couple of my videos I think, but this is the Mythic Pens Aeschylus, extra large Aeschylus actually. So it's a handmade pen from resin blank that has been turned on a lathe. So it's very fancy, very fancy. I didn't actually pay for this one. I won it in a giveaway, and I feel so lucky that I won it. Anyway, so that's the range we're gonna be looking at. This one is $250. Not all of Mythic Pens pens are like that, but I think this one, this particular model with this particular material was $250, and this is $2. So it's quite the range. So that's kind of where we're gonna go. We're gonna look at some pens in between there and all that kind of stuff. Now, I will say one weakness of this video right up front is gonna be I do not have any gold nibbed pens. These are all steel nibbed pens. So that's a whole different level of things. That's a whole different dimension that I have not yet crossed into. Maybe if I win a gold nib pen in a giveaway, then I'll make another video and update this, but for now we're just looking at steel nib pens. So just know that while we are looking at a very big range, it's still a little bit limited in some ways. I don't have any Sailor pens or fancy platinum or pilot pens, that kind of thing. But there is still a big range, and I think it's still instructive to look at what I have as far as what you can expect at different price points. So let's flip the camera and let's take a closer look at these pens. All right, so let me show you what I've got here. I have a pen bed with some of my entry-level pens, and then I have a pen bed with my fancy expensive pens. Wow, just lifting these things, this weighs like 3 times as much as this one. Anyway, all right, so as I mentioned, I've got the Jinhao Shark. I paid $2, but it's generally $4-ish. I have my Diplomat Magnum, which I actually really enjoy. It's one of my favorite everyday carry pocket kind of pens. It's not a pocket pen, but it's small-ish and really reliable, and I like it. The TWSBI Eco, of course, is a classic. Nice pen. So the Magnum is $23, I believe. And I forget where this one sits. It's like $31, $32 now. And I guess I have these pens a little bit out of order, don't I? There we go. Okay, so this is my Gravitas Entry, which I've reviewed before. Nice pen, really cool small business from Ireland. And this is a Conklin Durograph. So I believe that when you convert this one to USD, it's $80-ish. And this one is right around the same, this Conklin Durograph. So, and then we have this big jump up to $250 with the Mythic Pens Aeschylus right here. So, all right, so I think what we'll do is we'll start on the low end and work our way up. And I have a few different points I want to talk about. So we'll talk about each of those points for each of the pens, and then we'll move on to a new point. To hopefully stay organized and brief here. I don't want to go on too long. This is 6 pens, so it's kind of a lot to cover. First thing, let's talk about body material, the stuff that the pens are actually made out of, because I feel like that above all is one of the biggest determining factors of price in a pen. And like I said, I don't have any gold nib pens, but that's a good example. You know, you can get, let's say a Lamy Studio, for example, for like $80-ish, or you can get one with a gold nib, I believe. I think there's an edition here or there that has a gold nib, and it costs way more. So the materials really matter as far as the price of the pen. So on this one, it's just cheap injection molded plastic. It feels kind of like a toy, like a cheap kid's toy, which, I mean, it kind of looks like one too. I don't know, it's kind of cute. But not all plastics are bad, right? This is also injected molded plastic, but it feels nicer. Maybe it's the matte finish that gives it a nicer feel. I like it, it feels sturdy. And then of course you've got some metal components too, which is nice. The TWSBI Eco is an acrylic pen, so I'm not really too good on my materials as far as knowing exactly how to define them, but I believe acrylic is a kind of plastic, but it's a different kind of plastic, and I think it's generally tougher. So this is a nice material, and it looks really, really nice, and it feels nice in the hand as well. So this one is aluminum, and I've noticed that aluminum pens, they're not the most expensive, but they definitely do bump up the price. So like, you know, a Lamy Safari versus a Lamy All-Star, it's basically the same pen. The only difference is that one is plastic and one is aluminum, and the aluminum one costs a bit more. So especially something like this where it's like machined aluminum, you can expect to pay a little bit more for that, but it's worth it. I mean, it's lightweight, it feels really good, and it's pretty durable. So that's what I like about it. This one, I honestly don't know exactly what it's made out of, but it's metal and it's heavy. So durable again, as far as what it's made out of. And then this is really, I mean, like I said, the price jump is pretty huge, between $80-ish and $250. The reason for that is that this began as a blank, a solid cylinder or rectangle of resin. I'm assuming it's epoxy resin, which is very strong. It's also just very versatile as far as what you can do with it, with the colors and all that. It might be kind of tricky to see here. Let me see if I can open this pen up for you and show you more of what the colors look like. It's really interesting what they did with this. So they took clear blue and black resin and they just like blended it all together. And yeah, it's really pretty. And this is actually a very understated resin pen. This is a very reserved example. There are so many out there that are so flashy and blingy and fun and stuff, but I kind of like this reserved look. I like them all, but anyway. So they took this blank, Mythic Pens, I think they bought this blank, I can't remember who from. There's a lot of people that make blanks. But they bought this blank and then they turned it on a lathe, they drilled out the insides, they cut the threading themselves. So this pen was made by hand, basically start to finish. The only thing that really wasn't made by hand is the Yovo nib unit. Like, that's probably, you know, more factory made. But even then, and we'll get into this more, I'm pretty sure that this this nib received individual attention and tuning, because it's a really nice nib. Okay, so that gives you some idea of some of the range of materials. Of course, there's all kinds of stuff out there. There's 3D printed pens. Gravitas makes pens out of Delrin and polycarbonate, and I don't know if these are on the market, but he's experimented with titanium, I think. Anyway, there's just a lot of stuff out there, so it's hard to catch it all in one video. Oh, there's also, you know, copper and brass and, you know, different things like that. But generally, I think that the material a pen is made out of is really a big determining factor in its price, because some materials are just more expensive. You know, this material for this one, epoxy is expensive to begin with, but then you add to that the time and attention it took to create this color pattern from scratch. And that's really kind of where the expense comes from there. And then also, you know, having to hand turn it on a lathe and everything. Okay, so let's talk about workmanship, and that's a good segue into this. So workmanship, quality control, manufacturing, all of that, I think is something that you will notice differences in as you go up the scale. So on this one, like I said, it's injection molded, so you'll see some injection molding lines. You'll see different, you know, leftover remnants of the manufacturing process, all that kind of stuff. But it doesn't necessarily mean you're getting a bad pen if it's cheap, you know. This pen, I haven't used it a whole lot, to be honest. It writes really smooth and wet. I'm really surprised that a $2 pen can write as well as this does. I think maybe it can run a little dry if you use it too long. I could be wrong though, so don't quote me on that. But overall, you know, this just ran through a factory pretty quick. So it's, you know, possible to get a dud. I mean, it's possible to get a dud with anything, but as you go up the line, you start to see pens just look better and they feel better. So the TWSBI Eco, for example, you know, $30-ish pen. When you open up the box, I've said this before, but when you open up a TWSBI Eco box, it's kind of surprising. It's like, whoa, this thing is just gleaming at me. It's so pristine and nice looking. So you can tell they really put some effort into their manufacturing to make sure that the end product is really good. And same goes for these. I think that the higher you go, it's not a guarantee that your pen is going to be really well put together, but it's definitely more likely. The Conklin Durograph is a good example of that. It's, you know, it's got all these different parts on it, a lot of different things that could go wrong, but it feels very solid. There's nothing wobbly or out of place or anything like that. And one thing that's interesting is, you know, it's a screw cap. It's so smooth and pleasant to use. It's actually metal on plastic, but it's a beefy plastic. It doesn't feel like I'm gonna ruin the threading in there. But it just gives it a very soft and pleasant feel. So that's the kind of thing that you can expect on more expensive pens sometimes, is just kind of a better user experience in the little details like that. The Jinhao Shark is also a screw cap, and it just, I don't know, you can feel that cheap plastic, I guess. There's nothing wrong with it, it's very functional, but if you're into just a more luxurious kind of experience than something at the higher end of things, you're just gonna notice a difference there. Okay, let's talk about nibs. I think that is a really important thing because the nib is really kind of the heart and soul of a pen, and you can have great material and great presentation and everything, but if it doesn't write well, then it's pointless, no pun intended. So let's give all of these pens a whirl, and I'll just kind of talk about how they feel to write with. So here we have the Jinhao Shark, and I'm gonna skip the cool quote for this time just because I have so many pens. I'm going to just do, you know, some basic standard kind of testing. All right, so here we go with the Jinhao Shark. So let's see, let's just do quick brown fox. Okay, so very smooth, very wet. As you can hear, there's feedback when you push, but it's honestly, it's pretty nice. It has a really nice feel. I believe that this is marketed as an extra fine nib, which is a little confusing because it's more like a medium, like maybe a Western medium. It's kind of a thicker nib, but I don't know that. I've only tried one Jinhao pen, so I don't really know, but that may just be part of it being a cheap pen. There's going to be some variation in the nibs, and honestly that's true as you get higher too, but maybe it's especially pronounced at this price point. I'm not sure though. Okay, So now let's take a look at the Diplomat Magnum. This pen is really interesting, and I talk more about this in my review of this pen, but the nib is actually quite soft for a steel nib, and especially for a budget pen. Like, the nib is just kind of awesome. I did have some problems with it at first, but I tuned it up a little bit, and it's one of my favorite pens to write with. It's really pleasant. Okay, here we go. Okay, so wet as well. So I forgot to mention, I'm using actually 2 different Mont Blanc inks with these pens. So this is Mont Blanc Mystery Black, and this is a Mont Blanc Blue Black cartridge. One thing about fountain pens that makes things a little bit tough as far as deciding what's better is it's just comparing apples and oranges. It's hard to really say what is better, even at different price points. But my preference leans more toward this. It just, that slightly bouncy nib and different things, it feels really cool, and it's a pleasant pen to use. And then moving up to the Eco here, I have Private Reserve Neon Blue in this pen right now, and this is a medium nib. So this, like I said, I believe that was an extra fine, even though that doesn't make sense to me. This is a fine, and this is a medium here. Okay, it's very smooth, smoother than the previous 2 pens probably. Not by leaps and bounds, but I think it's noticeably smoother. It's nice and wet, it's consistent, it's reliable. I really do like TWSBI Ecos. Now we're gonna look at this one, and this is kind of interesting because I believe that TWSBI uses JoWo nibs, even though they're kind of customized in-house somewhat. This is also a JoWo nib, a bigger one, a number 6, and this is hand tailored by Ben Walsh, the guy who runs this little business. So that's definitely something that you can kind of expect a little bit more of, at least from small makers like Gravitas or Mythic Pens. You're probably going to get more attention to the nib itself instead of somebody just throwing on a stock nib. It's probably going to be a nib that someone spent more time testing and tuning. So this is a medium, and actually has the same ink in it, the neon blue. It's a little bit drier, I think. Yeah, quite a bit drier actually. Not quite as much of a gusher. I honestly don't know which I prefer. It's just kind of nice having both and being able to swap back and forth and all that. So, okay. Now we have this Conklin Durograph. This is a fine nib, but this is one of the confusing ones. This one feels more like a medium. It's pretty big as far as the line goes. Okay. Pretty wet there. So yeah, it's a fine, but so far it's the thickest line. It's closely tied with the TWSBI Eco medium. And the ink here is Pilot Irushizuko Yuyaki. Lovely orange ink there. So let's see. This pen, when I got it, was by far the smoothest pen I'd ever tried. It was so buttery smooth, but it was having some skipping issues, which is unfortunate to see in an $80 pen. But when I looked at the nib under my loop, it looked like I was seeing some baby bottom stuff, like over polishing of the nib to the point where the nib actually starts to struggle a little bit. So I used some of my micromesh, mylar paper, whatever it is. Anyway, so I used some of that stuff and tried to kind of narrow the nib down a little bit. I wasn't trying to like really drastically reshape it or anything, but just trying to help it out a little bit. And so far, it's doing better. I enjoy using this pen, but it still seems to run a little dry on me sometimes. I guess that is, that's kind of an important lesson in the pen world, is that, you know, you can get a $30 pen that writes like a dream and always writes like a dream no matter what. And you can get an $80 pen that writes like a dream when it feels like it. No, I really do like this pen. It's still new to me, so hopefully I'll be able to figure out some of the quirks. And honestly, I feel like I just have really bad luck with pens, like really bad luck. Like of these 6 here, let's see, half of them, including 2 of the more expensive ones, have had issues. So it's just important to know that just because you spend more money doesn't mean you're really leaving the quality control issues behind you. There still might be some. And it doesn't mean that you bought a bad pen or that you bought from a bad company. It just kind of happens. Like all pens, no matter how good they are, they're going to have a defect rate of something, you know, for every 100 pens, 1,000 pens, whatever, there's going to be a dud or 2 here and there. But of these ones that I've struggled with that we're looking at today, which would be these, they've all worked out. I enjoy all of them, and it hasn't been very difficult to make them work out. It's been fine. Okay, so that leaves us with the Mythic Pens Aeschylus, and this nib, it's a fine Yovo nib, and I don't know what Brad, the owner, does with his nibs, but he's got to do something, because it, like I said, it's just an awesome nib. It's pretty fine. Let's take a look actually. Okay, so it's a fine nib, it's a wet fine nib, and it has feedback for sure, but that's kind of what you get with fines. It's actually really smooth. I like it quite a bit. Like, of all my pens, this might be my favorite nib. It's pretty nice. So yeah. So just to sum up the nib stuff, great nib on this pen. You can spend $250 and get a great pen. You can also spend $23 and get a great pen. It's really up to you. Do you like these awesome materials? Are you kind of a collector that kind of likes that kind of thing? Or do you just need a pen for the office or for school or whatever, you know? And honestly, this pen, I really enjoy journaling with it, writing with it, but it's not an everyday carry pen. You know, it's not a quick draw pen. It's not a pen that I want to put in my pocket and risk scuffing up. So it's nice to have this thing that just has a quick snap cap. I can throw it in my pocket without worrying about it, all that kind of stuff. So there really is value in both, and I enjoy having both and using both. Okay, 2 other things I want to talk about. The first one is durability and longevity, and then the last thing is kind of an extra thing, but just the packaging and accessories that these pens come with, because that is something that you will see a difference with. It's not really the most important thing, but it's still fun to take a look at. So let's talk durability. As I said before, this kind of resin is probably going to be pretty durable for the long term. It's going to be pretty sturdy, especially in such a big size. You know, like, it makes this number 6 nib look small. And so with all that thick, chunky material, it's highly unlikely that it's going to crack on me. Expensive pens can crack. When I was doing some research a while ago on how to repair cracked pens, I was seeing people in forums talk about their cracked Sailor or their cracked Mont Blanc. I don't think those kinds of pens are going to crack very often. I don't think there's a chronic problem there, but there's still a possibility. But on the lower end of things, cracking, you'll see that more often. So nothing on this pen yet, and honestly, I don't really expect it. It's not the most fancy kind of plastic, but it's pretty thick and chunky plastic, so I think it should be pretty durable. This pen has been great. I think it's pretty darn durable. This TWSBI Eco has been fine so far. I've had it for a couple of years. It's funny, I have a longevity review about TWSBI Ecos, but after I made that one, my older TWSBI Eco, my white one, cracked. There are 2 or 3 cracks in the grip section right around the nib, and so I can't write with it without getting ink on my fingers. I still need to try to repair it. I think I can, but it's still kind of a downer. I don't think there's as much of a cracking issue as there used to be with TWSBI Ecos, but it can still happen, unfortunately. So that's something to consider. I think that generally going up in price is going to give you more durability, but only to a point. Yes, this is very durable, but this aluminum and steel pen is going to last way longer, probably. This is far more durable. I wouldn't want to drop this one on the sidewalk. I wouldn't want to drop this one on the sidewalk either, but if I dropped this on the sidewalk, it would get scratched, but it would still function. Where this one, I don't know. I'm not going to try it, but this one could have some pretty scary things happen if I dropped it too hard. So yeah, I think that maybe in the mid-range of pens, maybe like $50 and up, maybe that's kind of where you start getting pens where it's like, yeah, you can really trust this to put up with some wear and tear and be really durable and all that kind of stuff. But you don't have to go that high. I think the Lamy Safari is really durable. The Diplomat Magnum is really durable, and there are others as well. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is talk about what actually comes with these pens, because that is something that can change as you go higher in price. So first of all, most pens at the entry level don't typically come with converters. They'll come with a cartridge, and that's typically it. The funny thing is that all 3 of these entry-level pens come with a fully functioning ink filling system. So piston filler, so that's kind of a given, you know, automatically comes with that. There's no extra parts you need. This pen, I don't have it in there right now, but this pen actually did come with a converter. I don't think the Diplomat Magnum always comes with a converter. I think it depends on where you buy it, so just pay attention to that. But it can come with a converter, and this one, this $2 pen came with a converter. That's mind-blowing. But most don't. You know, the Lamy Safari doesn't. I have this Platinum Prefount, whatever. This does not come with a converter. It's eyedropperable though, so I just went with that. But yeah, so a lot of cheaper pens don't typically come with more than a cartridge, but some do. So yeah. Now, this one is interesting. It came with a converter, which sadly quickly leaked on me. So I've since swapped it out for a different converter, but it did come with one, and it came with 4 Pelican ink cartridges, which is pretty generous, so that's pretty cool. This one came with I think a couple of ink cartridges. I want to say a blue one and a black one, and it came with a converter. This one actually has a screw-in converter, which is really cool. I like that a lot. And then this came with a converter, and I don't remember if it came with cartridges. It probably did. So that's it for the converter cartridge stuff. Let's look at what the packaging looks like, because even though it's not part of the writing experience, it is part of the experience of getting a pen and owning a pen. Here, with the Jinhao Shark, I don't have a box for it, and I want to say it didn't come with one. I'm pretty sure there was just like a barcode on it or something. So yeah, some cheap pens, it's just the pen. I think there are 2 pens of mine that came like that. The Diplomat Magnum just came in a very simple cardboard box, nothing really to it. Let's see, and it comes with a little thing that you clip your pen onto so it doesn't shake around in there. Pretty simple, nothing fancy about that. And it's not a bad thing to have a simple box, right? I mean, you're buying the pen, not the box, but still, it's just fun to take a look at these things. So here's the TWSBI Eco box, and I actually really like this box a lot. I think it's pretty cool. So it has this cardboard sleeve, the plastic box itself comes out, it clips open, and then you unfold the instructions, take out more instructions, and then you got a foam insert spot for your pen, and then a wrench and some silicone grease. So it's a really fun, nice presentation there. Okay, now my Gravitas Entry, this is the Skittles edition. The packaging matches, which is fun, and it's just a cardboard tube with ends and a little lid. It's sturdy, it's nicely made, but it's very simple. And not all of Gravitas's pens come in this. Sometimes they come in a nice little like faux leather pen sleeve, which is really cool. I wish that this one had come in that. But the cool thing about this is that he puts a scent in here. I can kind of still smell it. That makes it actually smell like fruity candy. So when you pull your pen out, that's the smell that jumps out at you. So that's fun. And so, you know, not every expensive-ish pen is going to come with something that creative and clever, but I think as you do start to spend more on pens, you do start to see more intentionality with packaging. You know what? I'm actually going to leave this one for last because that has the most dramatic packaging. The Mythic Pens, you know, it's a small company, and so it also has kind of a minimalist kind of design a little bit. So it's just pretty simple cardboard, very sturdy, a nice wax seal on it. So you open it up and it's just some cottony stuff in there. But the pen itself actually comes in this cool little pen sleeve that works quite well. So I really like that because, you know, boxes are fun, but unless you have like one fountain pen with some kind of nice box on your desk, you're not really going to use the box as much after you get your pen. So it's nice having something that's a little more usable. And then lastly, this is the Conklin Durograph box, and it's big. And you slide out the cardboard, and you've got this fancy faux leather thing that pops open. It's like very jewelry kind of thing. And then this pops out, and this is where you've got your cartridges and information and all that stuff. So pretty cool. Like I said, boxes don't really matter a whole lot in the long term, but still fun to see. So, and again, as you go up the line, you'll start to see pens come with more bells and whistles and that kind of stuff. Okay, so that's about it. I'm sorry if I got a little rambly on you. It was a lot of stuff to cover, but I hope that helps as you're looking at pens and trying to decide how to spend your money on pens. There's nothing wrong with a good cheap pen that you know is going to be durable and reliable, and there's nothing wrong with a fancier pen too. So just depends on what you want to use your pen for and what your ultimate goal is with your collection and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think that's it. I'll talk to you later. Bye.